Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Cover 2 podcast. I am Nick Keenan.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And, guys, we have another football-filled show for you guys today. Obviously, two giant games this coming weekend. It's conference championship week in the NFL. We have four games to discuss, four storylines from these games to discuss from last weekend. If you're wondering why Clipper fan Nick is wearing what looks like a Lakers hat, it's not. It's a half Lakers hat. Because obviously, if you look at it right here, and I know the camera might be backwards because of the way we film, but it's actually a Lakers and Dodgers logo. And that's because these are the only two LA teams that are going to win championships this year because the Rams have been eliminated. So I'm rejoicing over here as an NFC West fan. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the Lakers and Dodgers for winning LA championships. We didn't need the Rams to win. The Chargers were never going to win. And I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not going to be sitting here all of a sudden I'm a Laker fan. I'm just saying. That's why I'm wearing the hat.
I thought that's what was possibly happening was you were jumping ship. And
No.
If it would have been okay, I would have still,
I should have worn my Clippers jersey.
Giving you crap for, being a Clippers fan in the first place. But There's always room if you want to come over to the team that actually wins. There's always room.
It's fine, Jared. But, so we're going to have a heavy NFL show, but we're going to start the show like we have before the last couple weeks back in 2020. We're going to give you something that we're not going to talk about on this show, something in sports that we're not going to jump into. It's pretty much going to be an NFL heavy show. So Jared, start us off. What do you have to say to start the show?
It turns out James Harden can play basketball when he wants to, right? First game with the Brooklyn Nets, and he gets a triple-double, 32, 14, and 12. Actually, I should say 12 and 14 because it goes points, rebounds, then assists. But it's like, the dude, first of all, he looked like he was in shape. It's like all of a sudden overnight he shed 20 pounds, right? He looked happy. He was smiling. Obviously, his rapport with Kevin Durant is great. They played together in OKC in their early days as they were drafted there. So it seems like, James Harden is happy, and it's just amazing to see, everything that happened with the Houston Rockets and, the fight that he was putting up with that team just to get out of there. And so Kevin Durant dropped 42, James Harden obviously 32, and Brooklyn puts up a total of 122 to win. Now, obviously, they're playing Orlando, not a real contender, but still, this Brooklyn Nets team is for real. And the question I have is, do they really need Kyrie Irving?
You saying that?
If they're getting a consistent, I'm not saying that Kevin Durant's going to drop 42 every night. James Harden can average 32 a night, but it's like if they get that type of consistency, Kyrie better be scared, man. I'm saying right now, Kyrie is like one more slip up away from bye-bye.
Very, very interesting stuff. My thing I'm going to talk about today is in the realm of mixed martial arts. That's UFC. Not only did we have a fight where the winner of the fight this last Saturday broke the record for most significant strikes in a fight, but this coming weekend, we have somebody by the name of Conor McGregor fighting for the first time in a year. McGregor showed up to the hotel in Abu Dhabi today with $1 million watch, without a shirt on, with his young son. Oh, and before he got in the taxi to get to the hotel, he arrived on a yacht. So Conor McGregor is coming into style. Now, I was talking a little bit about this fight because I am kind of an MMA guy. You guys know what I do for my other podcast. McGregor's winning this fight easy. But his opponent is no slouch, and there's big stakes. Khabib Nurmagomedov, who actually holds the title in Conor McGregor's lightweight division, has said that the two fights that are in Khabib's division in this weekend's card, he will determine whether he's going to retire based on how good those fights are. So very, very interesting stuff. But so lots to watch. If you are somewhat of an MMA fan, even a casual, these are the types of fights that you watch. All right, we're going to get into the podcast now with a little NFL talk. Jared, by the way, also the Nets, like you mentioned with Kyrie Irving. James Harden going off, right? They play. They're going to be playing in about 30 minutes from when we're recording right now. You got to think that if Harden goes off again, those Nets coaches, right? They're gonna want to reevaluate who they have, and they get more value on the bench if they trade away Kyrie. Very, very interesting stuff. We could talk about that for a segment on this podcast. but football is more important today. So we're going to start it off with the we're not going to go in chronological order like we always do. We're going to talk about last weekend's game. We are going to review them a bit, and we are going to start with what was the craziest game of the weekend, and that is Cleveland and Kansas City. There are rules that people want changed. There's rules people want enforced. Baker Mayfield looks surprisingly good. And will Patrick Mahomes play next weekend? There's so much about this game that we can talk about, Jared. I just want to get your thoughts on how this game transpired, Mahomes being injured, Chad Henne, everything. There was so much to talk about this game. Your thoughts on this Browns-Chiefs games yesterday?
Yeah, well, I mean, no doubt it had the most suspense out of all four of the playoff games this weekend. And it went a little differently than I expected, at least to begin. If I'm not mistaken, on last week's podcast, I thought Cleveland had a little more momentum coming into this game, and I thought they would jump out to an early lead. I mentioned in the last 2 years, Kansas City typically coming into a playoff game, they start off slow. Like they'll get down by 10 or 13 or even 24 points to Houston, I believe it was last year, and they have to they're so good with Patrick Mahomes and all the weapons that they have that they just kind of, with the snap of a finger, can, flip a switch and just start to play well. And Kansas City in this game actually came out with an early lead, and it was Cleveland that had to fight back. Obviously, it was a little easier without Patrick Mahomes and that concussion. And let's talk about that for a second, because it's usually when you think of a concussion, you think of like a helmet to helmet or a dude getting his head slammed into the ground. I didn't really see that with Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. I was a little surprised that he was, kind of shooken up by that play. It looked more like, it was like a neck or something. I didn't see that forceful blow to the head. Now, obviously, I'm not trying to dispute anything. If Patrick Mahomes is shaken up, I play football and I've unfortunately had concussions as well, and then they happen in a multitude of different ways. It's just we're so used to seeing that big collision that I was at first a little shocked that Mahomes was even being taken off the field. And secondly, that he wasn't brought back into the game, right? Patrick Mahomes, not only the quarterback and an all-star of the Chiefs, but the best player in all of the NFL, right? And so the fact that he wasn't able to come back into the game was big. And Chad Henne, the journeyman veteran quarterback, who I will say this, and obviously the Chiefs and Andy Reid had no idea that Patrick Mahomes was going to get a concussion and was going to have to come out of this game. But the fact that Chad Henne started week 17, the last regular season game, and was able to get those reps, I think that was huge for him to come into this game and have a little bit of confidence and to say, all right, I'm not completely cold. I played an entire game last week, or 2 weeks ago, because the Chiefs had a bye. And so I think he was a little more calm and a little more settled coming into this game. So that to me, the fact that Mahomes was not able to come back, and I'm sure he tried, right? He's a competitor. Yeah. I'm sure he wanted to be out there with his teammates. And if you are the training staff of the Chiefs, I guarantee you the first thing they did once Mahomes was taken off the field was they took his helmet, because you can't go on the field without a helmet. Right? Yeah. Like you can try, you can act, you can do whatever you can to say I'm good. But if you don't have your helmet, you ain't going back on the field. And so, obviously it was probably the smart thing that the Chiefs kept him out. But that was the biggest thing to me, that this Patrick Mahomes did not return for for as big of a name as he is. And I know you want to get into the rest of it, so I'll kind of pass it off to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, helmet-to-helmet hits or concussions was the big storyline in this game, and not only Patrick Mahomes sort of giving Cleveland a chance. The biggest play from this game came when Rashad Higgins fumbled a ball through the back of the end zone, which is an NFL rule. It is a touchback. We all know what was going to happen when that ball went out of bounds. It was more of maybe he had touched the pylon, maybe this is a touchdown, maybe he was down. Well, when that happened, it was when we were looking at the replay, we saw that Daniel Sorensen, one of the DBs or maybe one of the linebackers for the Chiefs, I forget exactly what position he plays.
He's like a hybrid. He does both.
Yeah, exactly. It was a completely head hit. It was a targeting penalty by every definition of the rule that the NFL has. So on this play, we have two very disputed plays where fans on Twitter go crazy. One, every NFL fan is saying this
Oh,
touchback
Twitter.
rule shouldn't count. Okay, well, it counts and it happened, so that's what happens. The problem is it happened because there was a helmet-to-helmet hit. Higgins does not fumble that ball if he does not get slammed as hard as he can in the side of the head on this play. And that's what I will believe till I go to my grave if I'm a Browns fan. Because
I don't
here's
know.
the thing. The hypocrisy on this play is, yes, there was a rule enforced on the touchback, but why aren't the referees allowed, when they look at the review, to say, okay, well, we have clear helmet to helmet. Now this fumble doesn't matter. It's Brown's ball. The biggest thing that needs to come out of this is we absolutely need to be able to review helmet to helmet hits. If the NFL wants to take this rule seriously and wants to take head safety and concussion safety seriously, they need to start doing as much as you can to prevent these types of things. I know that it's tough for Sorensen on this play to do anything besides that. But all you have to do is hit him in the shoulder or go for his arm. You can't hit him in the head. And this is what needs to change about the NFL. I'm just saying, it's the rule. You can't, because we saw, again, Jerry, we saw in the Tampa Bay New Orleans game, there was a pretty, iffy call that was helmet to helmet by a rule that was called. And then this one wasn't called. And it literally might have been the difference in the game, where you look at where Higgins would have been. He would have been on like the 2-yard line. The Browns likely would have scored with their running back core, and they might win this game. Chad Henne going down the field to try to win the game for the Chiefs is not what you would want for Kansas City. I'm not saying they still wouldn't have won, but Cleveland would have been winning likely going into this last drive, and the momentum would have been completely on their side because they played a good second half. So I think this game is about NFL hypocrisy on, for some reason, some referees allow things to happen and others don't, and they need to just change the rule and make it so that that's a reviewable play. If you think there's targeting, then you should be able to review it. I know that might cause like reviews all over the place, but each team only has 2 reviews and a max of 3. So it's not like this will stop the game completely. I'm just saying, in these serious moments in the playoff game, review the play, get it right. And on that play, there was a touchback, but the touchback was primarily caused because of a hit to the head. So that's what I take away from this game.
I'm all about getting it right? And even though I don't agree necessarily with all the rules, technically going by the letter of the law, yes, exactly. Helmet to helmet should have been a flag. Problem is, I think everyone, including the referees, got distracted once Higgins actually fumbled the ball. If he wouldn't have fumbled the ball, I'm not saying that the refs would have thrown the flag for helmet to helmet, but I think there was a better chance that the referees could have maybe like zoned in on that specific hit. But once the fumble happened and the fact that it went into the end zone, everyone was like, oh, because that play like never happens, right? Like how many times does a player actually fumble into the end zone and there's a touchback? I mean, like maybe a couple of times a year, right? And in the 256 games that are played, at least in the regular season, maybe happens a couple of times. So the fact that happened, I think it drew everyone's attention away from the actual hit. And everyone was like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. Is it a touchback? Is it not? What are the actual rules? And I think that's where everyone started to go. For Sorensen, I don't necessarily blame him. Number one, I don't think he was doing it as like an actual targeting, right? That was as a defender, right? As playing cornerback, when I play football, like there are only a couple ways that you can tackle a guy. It's either you tackle a guy a certain way, even though it's not by the letter of the law of the NFL rulebook, or you don't tackle him and you let the guy score. You're gonna tackle the guy and get him down any way necessary, right? So I don't necessarily believe that it was a shot that he was trying to take. I think the angle that he took trying to get to the receiver, that was the only play that he saw, right? So to me, even if he doesn't hit helmet to helmet, with contact, I think that I've seen multiple plays where a receiver tries to stretch out and therefore kind of loses some grip on the football, and it causes a fumble. So I'm not really necessarily with you on the fact that just because Sorensen hit him in the head that he fumbled. I think because when you stretch out like that, you're already more susceptible to fumbling the ball if you get contacted hard enough. So I think that could have been a fumble regardless of helmet to helmet or not, right? That's basically just Higgins. Like, I can't blame him. He sees the defender coming. He's trying to stretch out the score. He's doing everything he can. Good for him. So is the defender. I think that's a bang-bang play. I'm glad that there wasn't a penalty thrown for helmet to helmet. And also the second thing is too, that the helmet to helmet wasn't reviewable because when you're reviewing a specific play, which the referees were reviewing the fumble out of bounds, you can't go back and review something else, right? So like if you're trying to review, I don't know, a pass interference call or something like that, you can't go back and also try to review a holding call, right? Like you can't piggyback off of something else and also do that. So Cleveland Browns fans obviously were upset that it wasn't reviewed, but you can't review two things at once. It's one or the other. Obviously, in my opinion, the referees got distracted by the fumble. That's what they decided to go for. Chiefs got lucky.
I mean, and that's the thing too. And Jared, I actually agree with what you said here mostly about just technically what happened on this play. There are times where, Jared, we see maybe like a goal line play on the one where they'll throw it up to Mike Evans, for example, and the corner has no chance, and he'll just PI Evans because he goes, we have one more chance. The ball's just back on the one. I understand that you can intentionally do penalties just to give your team a chance. I have no problem with Sorensen necessarily on this play. All I'm saying is the rule means that should have been called a penalty. And I think, again, when we talk about the NFL, all I want is the call to be right. Again, when the pass interference happened to the Saints in that Rams-Saints game 2 years ago, all everybody wanted to do was, you know what, this is so blatant, just change the call. Nobody's going to argue, right? Because that's clearly what happened. On this play, clearly everybody saw Sorensen hit him in the head. I know that Higgins fumbled, and maybe like you're saying, Jared, he hits him in the arm or the leg, he still fumbles.
Okay.
It's still a penalty. It's still a penalty.
So your comparison there is, I liked where you were going at first, but here's where I differ with you. 2 years ago, Saints and Rams, when Nickel Roby-Coleman had that egregious pass interference, everyone and their mama knew that was pass interference. You didn't even have to know football. You could have never watched a football game in your life, and you could have assessed and realized that you can't do that. Like, you can't just go and shove someone when they don't even have the football, right? That was so egregious that I don't. Those referees should have been fired. First and foremost, fired and never allowed to ref another game. This play, I'm telling you, I didn't see the helmet to helmet until the replay. Like, and I'm saying I could have been the ones that was, so I guess involved with the fumble. But the initial play that happened live, I didn't see helmet to helmet at first. It took the replays, and then it was like, oh dang. Okay, yeah, no, there was helmet to helmet. So I think those situations are different. I get how you're trying to compare them, but to me, that wasn't so blatant and obvious at the beginning. It actually took a replay and to slow it down for me to actually see some type of helmet to helmet.
Yeah, well, no, and Jerry, and to get to my point about the whole thing, I just want to clarify, this is what I think about this. I think the NFL should make it that maybe even specifically in playoff games, but you probably should do this for the regular season, maybe give each team an extra challenge, right? And just make every challenge count, right?
Oh, so slow the game down even more. Okay.
Listen. Here's the thing. There's ways you can speed up the game. You could have less commercials. You don't have to have a commercial after every touchdown or turnover, right? There's ways you can do it.
Take away money from the NFL.
I don't care. I don't care about money for the NFL. I care about these plays not screwing over fan bases and teams. That's all I care about. All I'm saying is, you don't even have to add an extra challenge. Just make it so that if a team challenges a play, everything applicable that they are watching gets called, right? In most challenges, you're not going to have a penalty or all that stuff on it. But if someone is challenging the ruling of a play, if there's PI that the referees see, they have to call it, right? Make it so that nobody can argue what happened on the play and the play gets right. Make every challenge count. And then maybe, Jared, just take away reviews on every turnover and reviews on every touchdown. Make it so that a team has to challenge a play in order for it to do it. That actually probably would speed up the game, to be honest. I think we don't need to be reviewing every single turnover and touchdown, but just make every challenge matter a bit more and make everything on that play applicable and just get it right. Right? I'm sick of these weird rules that cause these games to have weird outcomes because of technicalities. I hate technicalities. But one more thing about this game, because we do need to move on, Jared. I did want to mention again, Baker Mayfield impressed me. I'm a believer in Baker Mayfield now after this game because that running game was not working that well for the Browns. And like you mentioned, uncharacteristically, Kansas City started hot and Cleveland started slow. So Mayfield really had to do well. Besides the INT, to Tyrann Mathieu, they ended up not hurting them anyways because the Chiefs missed a field goal. Mayfield played awesome in this game, and at some points played just as well as Patrick Mahomes before his injury. So if you're a Cleveland fan, you're okay with Baker here. You don't need to think about
this
switching.
Isn't your same old Browns.
Yeah, it's not your same. This Browns team is good, and maybe tweaking a little bit on offense and a little bit on defense here could make them potentially a Super Bowl team. And Baker just making improvement after year. It's good for them. And for the Chiefs, they need Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes isn't playing. I don't think they have any chance at advancing, but we'll get into that in a second. I think the Chiefs played solid today, but they could have played a lot better. And I'll get to my opinion on that in the later games. But all right, Jay, let's move into the second most newsworthy game. That is also one of the Sunday games, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus New Orleans Saints. The nightcap, the main event of playoff weekend, Drew Brees versus Tom Brady for, I believe, the first time in the playoffs, correct? It was the first time in the playoffs that they had played each other because Brees only played in the AFC for a little bit, and with the Chargers, and I don't think they made the playoffs against Patriots. I could be wrong.
No, I know they played in the regular season. But I don't think they ever played. I think this is the first ever matchup in the playoffs. Yeah. You might be right.
So regardless, we have a very solid game being played. Tampa Bay ends up getting a 10-point victory. This game was a lot of momentum, right, Jared? New Orleans was playing very, very well, even without Michael Thomas contributing anything, up until a big turnover, a big fumble by tight end Jared Cook. From then on, the Saints did not score another point in this game, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went on to go 17-0 unanswered and win this game and essentially possibly retire Drew Brees. So, I think the biggest takeaway from this game for me is two things. Actually, there's three things. I'll start with New Orleans. One, Drew Brees is done. Okay, we're going to get into this at the end of the season with our kind of review of the NFL season, but Drew Brees did not look good in this game. He can't throw the ball deep. The only deep ball that they threw was from Jameis Winston, so that doesn't even count for Brees. And the fact that he could not find Michael Thomas the entire game is just sad, and if you're a Saints fan, you look forward to the Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill era. But Drew Brees, 3 turnovers, he in a lot of ways lost this game for the Saints. For the Buccaneers, you cannot give Tom Brady momentum because Tom Brady, once he was given momentum, took advantage of it and won this game because Tom Brady will rile up his defense. That defense played great in the second half and so on. The other thing, Tampa Bay did exactly what I said they needed to do, and that's spread the ball around, run the ball, pass the ball, even it up, let Brady be Patriots Brady. Jared, both running backs had over 60 yards in this game, combined for 125 total yards. 8 different wide receivers had a catch in this game. That sounds like the New England Patriots, right? That is the New England Patriots. If Tampa Bay could do that, they have a chance to win any game. So those are my 3 takeaways from this game. Once they gave momentum to Tom Brady, it was over. Drew Brees didn't look good at all. Michael Thomas, 0 catches, and Buccaneers spreading the ball was awesome for me.
Yeah, no, my takeaway is simply the fact that if this was Drew Brees of 3 years ago, or even if, and I can't believe I'm saying this, like I'm not like the Jameis Winston fan over here. Yeah. If Jameis Winston started this game, Saints probably would have won. Saints probably won. Listen, you're totally right. Drew Brees just doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
What?
Why do you say that, though? Why do you think Jameis Winston could have won this?
Listen, the fact that Drew Brees cannot pass the ball more than 15 yards down the field, if you're a defense and you know that you don't have to cover deep balls, you can put everyone up top. You can stack people in the box. You can play press. And it doesn't matter because Drew Brees can't throw it deep. You're right. If Taysom Hill was in this game, I think there would have been different sub packages. He probably would have gotten 15 or 20 plays under center, or at least the Taysom Hill package. And I think that could have affected this game in a more positive way for the Saints. But the fact that they didn't have Taysom Hill, and you're right, the one deep ball that was effective and that worked for the Saints was the Jameis Winston pass to Traquan Smith, right? Drew Brees couldn't make that throw. And that's why they had Sean Payton had to come up with this trickery in order for that to happen, right? So to me, it would have been one thing if Michael Thomas, would have been known as like a speedster guy that really only is a deep threat and stretches the field. Michael Thomas is a short to intermediate receiver.
So dumb.
He led the NFL last year in catches. So to me, I don't want to hear Drew Brees, even though I said it myself, the fact that like he doesn't have that arm. The fact that he wasn't able to find Michael Thomas is so like I can't even put it into words, because Michael Thomas is a short to intermediate receiver. Like Drew Brees can throw it 10 yards to Michael. Find a way to get Michael Thomas open. Put him in the slot, put him in motion. I don't care what you have to do. Like Tampa Bay has a good defense overall. They do not have a single cornerback or a single person in the secondary that can one-on-one stop Michael Thomas. So the fact that there was no catch by Michael Thomas in this game is staggering. It's unbelievable. I don't even know. Like, I could probably say a word, but it wouldn't be right because this is a family show. So I'm going to keep things PG. But Drew Brees just did not look good, man. It was sad to see him at the end of the game kind of walking off. You saw him turn around right before he went into the tunnel and just kind of like taking it all in once again. And I know we're going to get into that later on. It's just, like I said, if this was Drew Brees from 3 years ago, if he had a better arm, or if Jameis Winston or someone with a stronger arm was starting for the New Orleans Saints win this game.
This is going to be a preview for 3 or 4 weeks from now when we do another show. There are 3 quarterbacks that in a lot of ways their health and ability and age cost them playoff games or cost them part of a playoff game. Drew Brees was the reason the Saints lost this game. Yes, there was fumbles, but Drew Brees was the primary reason the Saints lost. Big Ben was one of the primary reasons the Steelers lost. He couldn't bend down to take snaps like you mentioned a couple weeks ago. He affected the run game. He made the Steelers change their offense into something ugly to watch and wasn't really NFL football. And then Phillip Rivers. He did the best at everybody, but the fact that he couldn't even throw a damn Hail Mary pass at the end of a game is one of the reasons the Colts, it's pathetic. So I'm kind of done, Jared, with all these old quarterbacks, besides the NFC Championship matchup, we will get into in a second, because those 2 guys seem to be ageless. Drew Brees seemed ageless for a while, but the last 2 years, Brees has not looked the same, and this is the worst he's looked since he was with the Chargers, and that's not a compliment. But we'll move on. Obviously, Tampa Bay will play Green Bay. We'll get into that in a second. Let's move on to the last AFC game of this weekend, and that was Baltimore and Buffalo. Jerry, we tagged this as being the game of the week, the game of the weekend. Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen, young stud versus young stud. 2 different styles of offense. One extreme rushing offense, one kind of more spread offense that passes a bit more, right? And what do we get? A bunch of missed field goals and 20 total points, right? Jared, my takeaway from this game, I'll just go first again. This was one of those games. This was NFL playoffs right here. Every single play mattered, okay? You have 2 big missed field goals by Justin Tucker, who doesn't miss field goals. Blame it on the wind. Yeah, blame it on the wind, because I think the wind really affected some of these balls. It almost looked like the wind picked up to make him miss. Like the wind just really didn't want to.
The stars aligned for that.
Yeah, exactly. So Justin Tucker misses 2 field goals. Lamar Jackson gets hurt in this game and doesn't play the entire fourth quarter. You're not going to win a game when your quarterback doesn't play the fourth quarter, unless you're, I guess, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. But that's a different story because they only had 1 more possession after Mahomes, and they were already winning that game. So different story. But, Jerry, I look at this. Buffalo played mistake-free football. 0 turnovers in this game. They did miss 2 field goals. Again, if Justin Tucker's missing field goals, everybody else can miss field goals, right? Everybody, like Tyler Bass, can miss field goals if Justin Tucker's missing field goals. So they were kind of even at that point. No interceptions, no fumbles for the Bills. This was mistake-free football from the Bills in a playoff game. You're probably going to win. Baltimore, they have, I would say, more key missed field goals. A bad punt that set up one of the field goals that was made by the Bills early, I believe it was in the first or second quarter. And then obviously when you throw a pick 6 that ends up being 108 yards, you're probably going to have a tough chance to win when you're in the red zone, and that red zone possession turns into a touchdown. I remember, Jared, one of the first Cardinals games I ever watched intently, Super Bowl, whatever, when it was Steelers and Cardinals. James Harrison with a pick six that ended up breaking the back of the Cardinals, and the Cardinals obviously, ended up losing by a touchdown or less in that game. So those are big backbreaker plays. When you also lose Lamar Jackson and you're down by 14 and you have to play a third string quarterback, you don't have a chance. My biggest takeaway toll from this game is that Buffalo does not look as good as they did during the regular season. And their offense is just a little bit off. I think they're just playing better teams. Remember, they did lose to the Chiefs during the regular season. Maybe that was a sign that against really great teams, they aren't going to play well. But this team just does not look the same. They let the Colts back into the game. They let the Colts stay in that game. And, if not for a big defensive play and a pick six where a lot of guys missed tackles and key missed field goals, the Bills are once again right in this game and not dominating like, say, the Packers or Tampa Bay did later in that game. So I'm looking at Buffalo, and I don't think they're the best team in the NFL right now. And they are coming into this next Chiefs matchup with a lack of momentum. What did you think about this game, Jared?
Yeah, no, you kind of took my opening statement about the Bills, and yes, they won, and obviously a win is a win, right? Especially in the NFL, it doesn't matter how ugly or how great, exactly. Yeah. Win's a win, Bills are moving on. But the Bills are not going into this game with momentum, or at least the momentum that I thought they would have coming out of a win against Baltimore. You're completely right. Like, if Buffalo needs to go and thank, or the Buffalo Bills fans need to go and thank the Bills management, or whoever signed off and actually made the trade for Stephon Diggs, because Stephon Diggs is the reason why Buffalo
That's
is
true.
Why their offense was humming. Buffalo ran a total of 32 yards in this game. Right now, obviously they don't have the running game of Cleveland or Tennessee with Derrick Henry, but 32 rushing yards in a game, to me, that stat alone, I would say that the Bills lost. Especially going up against a Baltimore team that runs the ball so effectively. If you cannot run the ball and kind of control the clock in a sense, which it doesn't look like the Bills were able to, I would have said that the Bills lost this game if I was purely looking at that specific stat. Josh Allen only threw for 206 yards, right? It's not like he was lighting up the scoreboard as well. I get it. The weather was a complete factor in this as well. Yes. But you would think with the weather and the wind being such a factor, you would have been able to run the ball a little bit better. Yeah. So that stat to me is just kind of mind-boggling in a sense. You're completely right. Yes. Stephon Diggs is a grown man, and Josh Allen just needs to continue to feed him, because as long as Stephon Diggs is getting his touches and getting open, even if he doesn't score a touchdown, I think that just puts a lot of pressure on defenses. And obviously Baltimore, going into the game knowing that Stephon Diggs was their best player. And I mentioned it last week, Baltimore having Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters and Jimmy Smith, they have a very good secondary that they have paid a lot of money to. And they still couldn't stop Stephon Diggs from getting 8 touches for 106 yards and a touchdown, right? So obviously that dude is the man. Buffalo, you're gonna have to, get that running game squared away, because going up against the Chiefs next week, it's not going to be the same, right? I don't think the weather will be as bad, but they're going to have to run the ball more effectively. When I look at the Baltimore Ravens, and yes, obviously Lamar Jackson not being there in the fourth quarter completely changes it. The game was over. They might as well have stopped it right there, because I don't care who you put in the game, whether it was RG3, Trace McSorley, whoever went in, they were not going to bring Baltimore back. This offense is purely made for Lamar Jackson. But to me, the stat that I look at the most is the fact that Baltimore fumbled the ball 5 times. Now, none of those fumbles were recovered by the Bills, right? So you're saying, well, Jared, the Bills actually didn't create turnovers off those. To me, when a team fumbles the ball 5 times, that's a lack of security. It seems like a lack of confidence, right? Gus Edwards had a fumble. Lamar Jackson had a fumble. Tyler Huntley had a fumble, albeit he probably wasn't thinking he was coming into the game. And then Patrick McCarry had 2 fumbles, right? So
that's the center. The 2 bad snaps.
Okay,
snap balls
right.
Over.
It's just like this team just wasn't in sync. They weren't in rhythm, right? And coming into this game, like you said, we were touting this as literally the most even matchup of all. Even though Baltimore still ran for 150 yards, which is their strength, the fact that they fumbled so much, it's like they never were able to get into a rhythm, because when Baltimore gets into a rhythm, when they can run, like when you can basically line up as a defense and say, like, we know that they're going to run, but Baltimore is still effective, there's nothing you can do. But when you hurt yourself and you kind of put speed bumps in front of your own offense, irregardless of the fact that Buffalo did not get the ball back, it just kind of hindered them right there. So it was just a snowball. They fumble the ball 5 times, right? They can't get anything going from a passing game perspective. And then Lamar Jackson gets hurt. You topple that with the fact that Justin Tucker, the not only best kicker in the league, but in NFL history, accuracy-wise and percentage-wise, is the best kicker in the entire NFL. When he misses 2 kicks, the night is just lined up, and for Baltimore at least. So, it was surprising that Baltimore was not able to put up more points, but then again, you just have to give credit to Buffalo's D.
Well, here's the thing. When you're a great team and your weather sucks in your town, get higher seeds. Because, Jared, we're going to see the NFC Championship game played possibly in snow in 24-degree weather against the Florida team, right? This game, clearly, Baltimore was not ready for this. And a guy that already can't pass that well, his balls were fluttering. The field goals were being missed. This is why you get higher seeds. This is why home field advantage, no matter there's 6,000 fans, 80,000 or 0, sometimes weather can be on your side. I just think that when you look at Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, they need like everything to kind of go perfect. And Lamar just needs to improve his passing ability. Or this team it's going to be tough for them to win a Super Bowl. I'm telling you, Jared, like I'm going to say this every single year, unfortunately. Until they can at least get to a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson, I cannot tabulate them as true contenders when Lamar Jackson throws the ball the way he does. He needs to improve his passing ability, because anybody can run the ball 50 times if you have good enough running backs. I'm just saying. That is something that although the weather sucked, Lamar looked worse than normal, and they had no chance, especially when he went out with some third string in there later. But let's move on.
I got 2 questions for you then. I got 2 questions. One's about Lamar Jackson, number 1, right? We've been saying Lamar Jackson needs to become a better passer for 3 years, right? This is his 3rd year in the NFL, going on his 4th. Like, you would think that in the offseason, you would work on your passing game. And I'm not saying that he isn't. I'm sure he is. But, like, usually there is a progression year after year, and we just haven't seen that so far.
No, I know.
Right? I mean, there's been a couple games. I believe it was last year, the opening game against Miami, where Lamar Jackson threw for 5 touchdown passes, and we were like, whoa. Obviously, Miami they were crap. They weren't a good team. But that was kind of like a sign of, oh, maybe things changed. As the season wore on, his passing game kind of went downhill. This year, we never really saw that breakout 350, 400-yard game, 4 touchdown passes, kind of utilizing his arm and not having to use his legs. So my first question is, will Lamar Jackson ever really become a better passer, or is he just simply a running quarterback that is going to just average 150 to maybe 200 yards passing?
I think everybody can improve. Look at Drew Brees, for example. He was not a very good quarterback, and he turned into one of the best ever. So I'm not going to count out anybody, especially with the run talent that Lamar Jackson has. But yeah, Jared, all he needs to do is, in the offseason, he needs to figure out and just practice running the ball. Like, it's different when you look at a guy like Jared Goff, right, who has no running ability. You can't really make Jared Goff run like Russell Wilson or run like Patrick Mahomes or run like Lamar Jackson. You can teach a running quarterback how to throw. So yes, Lamar Jackson has the advantage of it. His speed is so good, he can just focus on his passing ability this offseason, and that should just be all he does. So absolutely, I believe he can improve, and he has the benefit of already having the speed. Just figure out how to be more accurate. That's all you need to focus on. You're good. You're going to win the Super Bowl, bro, if your team's good enough.
Second question, I think. Yeah. Well, the second question is a piggyback off of the first. Lamar Jackson, like I just mentioned, going from his 3rd year to his 4th, he is now eligible for a contract extension. If you're Baltimore, does Lamar Jackson, I know he was the MVP last year of the NFL, does he deserve to be that next $100 million, break the bank type of quarterback?
Yeah, I do, because I think you look at it as if we're going to give Baker Mayfield credit, and we're thinking about giving Baker Mayfield a contract extension, you have to give it to Lamar, right? Like Lamar, every single year he even in that first playoff game, they almost beat the Chargers. Like it wasn't like they got blown out in that game. He didn't pass well at all, but Lamar Jackson playing in that playoff game, he didn't play horrendous, right? And so he has gotten better and better every single year, just not enough to where we'd like it. But like I said, this guy has more potential than, say, a Jared Goff or a Carson Wentz, who don't have as much of the running ability, have the arm. So, yeah, I give him the extension, 100%. I'm high on Lamar, but I'm going to keep bringing it up until he wins the big game, until he gets to the conference championship, at least.
Yeah, no, I'm high on him too. I'm just saying there's going to be questions because that is his ceiling right now. Lamar Jackson cannot win that playoff game for as good of a team as this Baltimore Ravens is, right? And we know how they're built. They're a great defensive team and they run the ball. But it's like eventually great quarterbacks, like they're great because they're able to overcome certain things. And so far, Lamar Jackson has not been able to overcome his lack of passing ability. So I agree. I think he should get paid because I think he still can improve and progress and get better. But I'm just saying there's going to be questions that come with that contract. It's not like just going to be, it's not going to be a slam dunk, Patrick Mahomes, give him whatever he wants. Like there's going to be questions about giving Lamar Jackson a big contract.
So we talked about Stephon Diggs a lot during the year. We talked about Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, right? Kyler Murray, a very run first quarterback, has a great arm, has a way better arm and passing ability than Lamar Jackson. He was given a wide receiver, and the Cardinals, almost made the playoffs after being one of the worst teams in the league 2 years ago. So give Lamar Jackson a better receiver, right? Marquise Brown is good. He ain't great, right? Mark Andrews is a tight end. He's not great. He's good. Go out and either draft a top wide receiver for Lamar Jackson that will help him out, or go trade for a guy. Maybe get rid of one defender or somebody else. Maybe get rid of one of the running backs and focus on helping Lamar Jackson out as much as you can. Lamar Jackson is the center of this team. Without a quarterback, teams have so little more of a percentage to win Super Bowls. If you can get him that guy he can rely on in the passing game, it gives him a chance. I say go out and get him a number one wide receiver in the draft. Go out and get him Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, whatever you got to do, figure it out, or go pick up a wide receiver like the Cardinals did and like the Buffalo did, because those teams made huge strides, whereas the Ravens make small strides, right? And I think the only thing they're missing is that top wide receiver on this team and Lamar's passing ability. But let's switch to the least storyline worthy game of this weekend. It was Green Bay and the Rams. It was the first game this weekend. Jared, what I got into this really quickly was, this was a mismatch, right? Jared Goff was beat up. Aaron Donald was beat up. They were missing Cooper Kupp. The Packers were essentially at full strength. Devontae Adams played well. The entire DB core put all their stakes on Jalen Ramsey stopping Devontae Adams, and they were not able to do it. And even though this game was really close, I look at this game and go, you know what? The Packers rushed for 188 yards and passed for nearly 300, almost had 500 total yards against number one defense. This was a mismatch, and I am so high on the Packers, Jared. I'm going to say this right now. They're my favorite to win the Super Bowl right now. They are the team. They are stacked offensively. If Devontae Adams can get past Jalen Ramsey, who the hell is going to stop that guy? And Aaron Rodgers looks like maybe the best he ever has. Then you add Aaron Jones and Robert Tonyan and Jamal Williams and Valdez-Scantling and a good offensive line, and this team is rolling. The defense can play better, but I don't think there's anything to say about the Rams this year. I think it's more about the Packers really impressing against number one defense in the league.
Yeah, no, I mean, for the Rams, I said Aaron Donald has to be effective. If Aaron Donald isn't effective, albeit he's got the rib injury, I get it. The weather was cold, so it was going to be tougher for him to get warmed up. If Aaron Donald was not effective in this game, Rams didn't have a chance. I didn't care if Jared Goff was playing. Jalen Ramsey's great, but guess what? Aaron Rodgers is so great that even if Jalen Ramsey were to shut down Devontae Adams, whether it was Allen Lazard, Valdez-Scantling, Robert Tonyan, like Aaron Rodgers was going to find other players. So to me, that Jalen Ramsey he can't be all over the field. He can only guard one dude, right? It was going to be more about Aaron Donald, and obviously he was not able to be effective. Right there, boom, done. Like game over, Packers. I will say this though, you're right. The Packers, I think, are the hottest team trending right now, right? Like the Chiefs, obviously with Patrick Mahomes and all the weapons they have, we know what they are on paper. But I think the hottest team is the Packers. And I predicted it. I said before, I think we're trending towards a Chiefs and Packers Super Bowl.
Ooh.
It potentially looks that way. You're right. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers can get 188 yards rushing from his running backs, right, and he still threw for 296 and 2 touchdowns, that is what we like to call a balanced attack. Because we know Aaron Rodgers can throw for 400 yards. We know he can throw for 4 or 5 touchdowns. But when he doesn't have to, even when the weather's not great, even when the weather's cold, this Packers team is hot right now. Last thing I will say, because you're right, we don't need to sit here and kind of hammer this home, is I think Aaron Rodgers came into this season with like the biggest chip on his shoulder he's ever had, simply because of the fact that the Green Bay Packers did not draft weapons to put around Aaron Rodgers. They instead went and drafted his potential successor in Jordan Love with their first round pick, right? So that was all the motivation that Aaron Rodgers needed to come out and say, all right, I may be my mid to late 30s, right? Obviously, like I'm not in my real prime anymore, but I can still come out here and ball, right? I'm still one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. Like Aaron Rodgers for MVP. I think it's as simple as that. I think it's done, set in stone. And he's proving why he will more than likely continue to play for another 3 to 4 years into his 40s. And no reason why he can't be just as effective as Tom Brady, who we just saw, stamp his way into the NFC Championship.
Yeah, no, I mean, this team is unstoppable at this point. Jerry, real quick to piggyback on something you said. You said if Aaron Donald didn't get involved, they weren't doing anything. Jared, he had half a tackle. He had like a couple pressures. Like he must have been really hurt because he looked like every normal defensive tackle in the NFL in this game. He looked like it was only getting double teamed too. It's not like he was getting triple teamed on this play. He also had a horrible 15-yard
only getting double teams.
Well, no, I mean he breaks double teams sometimes. I mean, trust me.
I know it's just crazy we have to say that because it's like double teams is obviously that's a lot of respect going to another person's way, but he gets triple teamed so often that it's just crazy that you just have to casually throw it out there. Yeah. Oh, he just got double teamed, like no big deal.
No, I mean it's ridiculous, but I've seen the guy break through 3 guys to murder Kyler Murray on plays. So it's not, and Josh Rosen and all the other guys that played for us. But yeah, so I mean, it's going to be interesting. Let's move on to the NFC Championship, Jared, because you're saying this might be one of the most balanced attacks in the league. Okay, well, the other side has historically one of the most balanced quarterbacks ever, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Tom Brady. In a lot of ways, Aaron Rodgers comes out and smokes Tom Brady in this game. There might be a debate for the GOAT after this game for how well Aaron Rodgers is playing. I knew you were going to say that too. I knew you were going to.
Okay. Who are you, Ryan Johnson? That was the most blasphemous thing you've ever said on this podcast. Hands down. Like were you talking to Ryan Johnson before? Did he like put that in your head to say that?
All. Zero. No.
That's
Jared, this is the thing.
No.
Jared, this is the thing. I give credit getting this far, right? Yes, did they stack his team this year? Correct. I saw some stat like last week. This was the first time, like he had like, I don't know, it was the first time he'd played like in the wild card round or something like that. Like he was so lucky in the AFC East that those teams sucked for like 15 years. I think if Aaron Rodgers comes out here with, all these weapons and there's a debate, but we'll get into that. That's for another podcast. It's for another podcast.
No. But we'll stop it right now. And you want to know how we'll stop it?
No, we're not stopping.
How many Super Bowl wins Tom Brady have?
It doesn't matter. He had an easier way. He didn't have to go through Aaron Rodgers every year. I just bumped my screen. he didn't have to go through Aaron Rodgers every year. Sometimes guys get lucky. We'll get into it. It's just like Michael Jordan and LeBron.
We need to move on because I'm about to get heated.
No, we are. NFC Championship. You're not going to get heated at this, Jared. This matchup is awesome, right? You have two of the best offenses in football. You have two of the best quarterbacks of all time in this game. And you also have chips on both guys' shoulders as far as the quarterbacks go. Like you mentioned, Aaron Rodgers with Jordan Love. Tom Brady's trying to prove that it wasn't Bill Belichick too, right? Like he has that chip on his shoulder as well. You know, I think when you look at this game, at least in my opinion, the Tampa Bay has the better defense, but Green Bay, I think, has the better offense at this point. So this is a really a hard game to predict. I will say this though, because we're not going to lament on these games too much because they're so close, and we've already analyzed these teams already kind of a little bit on this podcast. But I just think about Tom Brady and momentum with the Saints. You know, the Buccaneers looked average, right? They looked average up until they got the momentum from the Jared Cook fumble and their defense started playing well, right? Before, that same crappy Drew Brees was going down the field and scoring touchdowns on the Buccaneers defense. So this team can be average and also great in the same game. For the Packers, for some reason, they just seem great every single game. I mean, they're averaging 32 points a game. You can give up literally 4 touchdowns if you want by averaging that many points a game. So their defense doesn't need to play as well, right? It's like the Chiefs, for example, even last year or the years before that. The Chiefs, you know, they just had to not be on the field. Like they essentially, if you let Patrick Mahomes have the ball, you're going to win. In this game, I think if you had the Packers with the ball at the end, they're winning, right? Brady, similar thing, but this Packers team has been unstoppable for like 10 games in a row. So, you know, I think if you're the Buccaneers, you again, you got to have a balanced attack. You don't have a balanced attack, they have no chance. I've been saying this all playoffs. And keep Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones off the field. The Packers against the Rams, their drives in the first half when they were scoring and they were playing well, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, or a long bomb 2-3 minutes into the play. That is the type of offense you want to run. You want quick scores or long drawn-out drives to keep the other quarterback off the field. Now, I think for the Packers, again, similar thing, but you just don't want to give momentum to the Buccaneers. You don't want to turn the ball over and give Tom Brady, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, with so much playoff experience, that chance to score easy touchdowns, right? Because I think they had 2 of those in the Saints game as well. 2 easier touchdowns where they got the ball in Saints territory, even in the red zone. Tom Brady is going to score those all the time. So this is a game really where I think whoever has the better time of possession and who doesn't turn over the ball, who's going to win the game. It's that simple. And if the Buccaneers specifically get away from the balanced attack, I think they have no chance, like they did against the Saints earlier this season when they lost like 31-3. So, Jared, that's my take on the game. I have one more thing I want to say about the game, but I'll give you your chance to talk about this one.
Yeah, you talk about like chips on the shoulders, a guy having a chip on his shoulder, a team having a chip on their shoulder. The first thing I look at is back to the regular season, week 5. The Packers traveled to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay stomped them 38-10.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
If I'm head coach Matt LaFleur or any of the coaches on the Green Bay Packers, first thing I'm putting up on the board Monday morning, which would have been today, is that score.
Oh, yeah.
That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. You could say, yeah, we play well against the Rams and we're hot. We're on a hot streak right now. All that goes out the window. All you got to do is put up that score and how they got their ass kicked against Tampa. Now, I get it. It was a different scenario. The game was in Tampa. It was nice weather. Tampa Bay had fans, so you could say that it was a little bit of a home field advantage for the Buccaneers. This is going to be a completely different game in Green Bay, in the frozen tundra. Good chance there's either going to be snow or at the very least the game's going to be in the 20 or 30 degree cold weather range, right? And so a Florida team coming into that, not necessarily practicing or we'll see how well they adjust to that. But Tom Brady, obviously playing in New England for the last 20 years, I would say he would be used to that type of weather. So I think, to some degree, I think that weather might balance it out. But It's very simple, man. You want to talk about some motivation? I put that score up there of how Packers got their ass kicked in that first matchup. And I say, this is not happening again. And if the Packers continue to play that they have been, there's no way that will. So I'll give a reason or two reasons why the Bucs can win and a reason or two reasons why the Packers can win, right? If you're the Buccaneers, I agree with you on the first topic. They have to spread the ball around, right? Tom Brady has to get 6, 7, 8 different receivers involved and basically not let the Packers be able to key in on one guy, whether it's Mike Evans or Antonio Brown or Chris Godwin or the tight ends that they have, right? Ronald Jones was able to come back in this game for the Buccaneers against the Saints yesterday. And so even though he wasn't at 100%, I think it was good for him to kind of get some of his legs back so it could be a 1-2 tandem with him and Leonard Fournette in that backfield, because Tom Brady's going to need that running game or at least that play action game in order to spread the ball around to those receivers. So key for the Bucs, spread the ball around on offense. Do not be one-dimensional. Second key, on defense, I think that the Bucs have a better defense over the Packers defense, but when the Bucs are on defense on the field, they have to get at least two turnovers from Aaron Rodgers. If the Bucs can get 2 turnovers from Aaron Rodgers, I think the Bucs win this game. We saw what they did yesterday where they got 4 turnovers against Drew Brees. I get it. We already talked about how Drew Brees wasn't the same, but that Saints offense as a whole is very potent. You get turnovers, that puts that offense off the field and puts your offense back on the field. So if the Buccaneers can force at least 2 turnovers from Aaron Rodgers, I think that's a recipe for success for the Bucs to win. If you're the Packers, I mean, not much has to really change, at least from an offensive perspective, right? If they can get, I'm not saying they're going to get 188 rushing yards again, because I think the Bucs run defense is a lot better than that. But if they can get anywhere from like 120 to 140, and Aaron Rodgers can use that play action and that can complement him, I think that's going to be a big key for this Packers offense to be a little more multifaceted and not necessarily have to rely on Rodgers to throw for 300 or 400 yards. Second, so that's from an offensive perspective. On the defensive side of the ball, they have to play a good football game. They don't have to be great, because Aaron Rodgers in that offense looks great right now, right? So when you have a great offense, your defense doesn't have to be great. They just need to be good, right? You can't give up long drives. You can't let the Bucs get momentum, and they have to be able to isolate the Bucs somehow. Like, all right, we're going to double Mike Evans. We're going to double Antonio Brown. Like, we're going to take away at least one of those stars on the Buccaneers team. So for the Packers defense, you don't have to be great. Don't have to cause all the turnovers in the world. You just have to be good enough and let your offense back on the field.
Yeah, no, I mean, Jared, everything you're saying is essentially it's the Buccaneers doing the same thing they did against the Packers. When you look at the actual stats in that game where the Buccaneers did blow them out 38-10, it was, if you go back to it, Green Bay had a 10-point lead in that game. They had a pick 6. Green Bay threw another interception on the next drive. That led to a Tampa Bay touchdown. And then 2 consecutive 3-and-outs led to 2 other Buccaneers touchdowns where they went to pass happy and they went away from the spread offense, right? So what you are saying is exactly what the Buccaneers did. Now, you also mentioned some key factors that are way different in this game that you coming into this NFC Championship game are different. It's going to be 24 degrees and possibly snowing in Green Bay. It is perfect weather in this game for the Buccaneers, right? So you're going to see a lot of run, right? But if you look at Green Bay, Jay, remember what happened the last time there was snow all over the field in Green Bay? Remember what they did to Tennessee? A team that ran the ball, a team that ran the ball but also tried to spread around. They blew them out because teams aren't used to that, right? And Tampa Bay, I know Tom Brady played with the Patriots for years and years in the snow, but he's even been saying, his blood's a little thinner. I've been down in Tampa for about a year and a half now, right? So all I'm saying is these are different circumstances, but if stuff mimics what happened in the game earlier this season, it's going to be Tampa Bay winning. If it's like the New Orleans Tampa Bay saga, where New Orleans kind of beat the crap out of Tampa Bay in 2 games, then you get to the playoffs, right? Then probably the Packers are winning this game. So very, very interesting. Jared, who's your pick, though? Who's winning this game? Gun to your head, you have to pick. Who's winning this ball game and going to the Super Bowl?
Packers. I mean, how can you go against Packers right now? Like you're right. I agree with you. They're the hottest team in the NFL, right? I think when you look matchup wise on paper, they may not have the best overall roster, but the way that Aaron Rodgers is playing, the fact that the weather is going to be a factor, I can't go against the Packers right now. I'm saying Packers 27, Bucks 20.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Packers as well. I already said earlier in this podcast, I think Green Bay is the best team in the NFL, and they have the best chance of the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to sit here and say they're losing to Tom Brady. Tom Brady has lost playoff games. He's not invincible. Do I absolutely give the Buccaneers a chance in this game? I do. And I think, Jared, it's going to come down to who has the ball last, right? And I think this is going to be somewhat of a shootout, even though it's going to be a cold game. I'm going to go Green Bay 35, Tampa Bay 31. It's going to be a high-scoring game, even in the snow. And I think the Packers
bet the over.
I think the Packers win this game on one of the last plays of the game. I'm going to make it as entertaining as possible. And Aaron Rodgers is going to cement part of his legacy, winning a game against Tom Brady at the end and taking his team to the Super Bowl. It's the hottest team in the league, and we're going to go with the Packers on this one. All right, transitioning into the AFC Championship. Bills and Kansas City. Jay, right, you couldn't get two better AFC teams, right, in the AFC Championship. Now, we both think that Kansas City and the Bills are both kind of sputtering into this game. They are not looking as good as they did during the regular season. I at least have been saying Kansas City hasn't looked good for about a month and a half now. They haven't looked like the Kansas City of last year or even the year before. Their offense is a little shaky. Obviously, I'm not counting Patrick Mahomes having the injured leg yesterday and then getting concussed. I don't count that. I'm saying even before this, they weren't looking as great. The Bills is a little more surprising to me that they're not playing well because they have the advantage of the spread offense. The big thing with them, though, unfortunately, is they lost Zach Moss, one of their two-headed monsters at running back. So they are single like that. That's big, Jared. That's big because you saw how it affected them against the Ravens. They weren't able to run the ball, and I think that is a huge factor. Now, Jared, could we agree if Chad Henne's the quarterback and Patrick Mahomes doesn't play, Bills win, right? Do we even need to go over the game? Okay, yeah. So we're saying that right now. If Chad Henne is the quarterback, the Bills are winning. It doesn't matter how, the Bills will win that game. Chad Henne does not have enough to beat that Bills defense and to beat Josh Allen. But we're going to predict this game like Mahomes is playing. And Mahomes will be healthy because it's not like he broke his leg or anything. If he's concussed and he's okay, he's going to play, right?
We're going to predict it, but I'm also going to make another prediction. I don't care if Patrick Mahomes is concussed. And I'm not even just talking about Kansas City. Nick, the NFL will not let Patrick Mahomes not play in this game. You know the money that this game is going to come by with Buffalo and Kansas City, the two best AFC teams. Patrick Mahomes, $500 million quarterback, the face of the NFL, has basically taken over the reins from Tom Brady, the true and original GOAT. Patrick Mahomes is playing in this game. Like we don't need to project that. It's going to happen. I don't care if he is concussed. Patrick Mahomes, mark it, book it, do whatever you want to do. Dude's playing. Continue. Sorry, I just needed to get that out there.
Jared is very pro helmet hits. I'm just kidding.
I'm kidding. I'm just saying.
I want to see it too. I want to see it too. But the guy's got to be okay, right? We got to protect the guy. I want to see Patrick Mahomes, Jared, for 10, 15 more years. I don't want to see him taking these hits to the head and getting concussions and then getting more concussions and then turning into Andrew Luck. Right, I don't want that to happen.
All right. Be the realist. Okay, I get it. Yes, I want to see him for 15 more years too. Okay.
Jared, you hate me on this podcast right now. In the last 10 minutes, this is not turning out good. Like I thought this was going to be a fun podcast. I want fair football. I want there to be a fair debate between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, and I want Patrick Mahomes to be okay. But at the same time, I want to see big hits come back. So I didn't know where I stand. My mind is insane when it comes to football. But getting back to the logistics of the game, you look at the running game, and again, I'm predicting that Patrick Mahomes is playing. The Chiefs most likely that Clyde's Edwards-Helaire back, who was not playing. For some reason, Le'Veon Bell has not had a big impact on this year so far. I would have thought he would have a bigger impact yesterday. He did not. I believe it was Darrell Williams, who was the running back yesterday that ran for like 60 or 70 yards, really helped them win that game. If they have Clyde Edwards-Helaire back, that puts the Chiefs over the Bills in the run game. And I think when you don't have as great of a running back tandem and you only have Singletary as the running back for the Bills, Josh Allen can't run as well either. Because it's kind of one of those things where they'll just focus on on Josh Allen, and they'll be like, well, Singletary's not going to beat us. Yeah, he might get 67 yards in the game, but he's not going to beat us. We'll just stop Josh Allen from running because he's probably the better threat. When you have Darrell Williams, Le'Veon Bell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then Patrick Mahomes possibly running the ball too, that is a better running game there. So I'll give the Chiefs in the run game, better opportunity. I'll go out and say this though, that the Chiefs have Travis Kelce, and they have Tyreek Hill, and they have Patrick Mahomes. I think this Bills passing attack with Stephon Diggs and with Cole Beasley and John Brown, who's really played well, is right up there with them. It is more even than people think. And I think when we've seen teams be able to somewhat stop Tyreek Hill, the game, it gives them a chance against the Chiefs. And even yesterday, Travis Kelce balled out and was one of the reasons they won that game. But Tyreek Hill didn't play the best in that game. And they absolutely, the Cleveland Browns, had a chance in this game. So the Chiefs offense, again, they're sputtering a little bit. I'm going to give them the advantage in the rush, but I'm going to give a slight advantage in the pass game to the Bills at this point right now. And so I think it's as even as it gets. When you look at defense, I think defensively, the Chiefs are they're way better than the Bills on defense. And so that's where I'm going to go with this. I think the Chiefs win this game. I think it will be a lower scoring game than we expect. I think it's going to be about 28-24. I know that's sort of high scoring, but it's going to be a lower scoring. I think the Bills will be able to use Diggs like they did last week, but I do not think they have enough on offense and enough on defense to stop both the Chiefs offense and the Chiefs defense. And I think the Chiefs, like we said, they don't need to play their best game like they did last week, and they can win. And I think if they have Patrick Mahomes, they are winning this game, and it will be Chiefs-Packers. I was saying it was going to be Bills-Packers. The Bills have not impressed me at all the last two games, and I think the Chiefs have a better roster overall and will win this game singularly because of that. And Mahomes has the playoff experience still.
Yeah, no. I mean, you said it again. You reiterated again that, like, if Patrick Mahomes plays, so I'm going to reiterate again. Patrick Mahomes is playing in this game. Like, book it, mark it, do whatever you have to do. So let's just get that out of the way, and I don't even have to put that into my analysis. Patrick Mahomes is playing in this game, but you are right, and I agree with you to this point. If Tyreek Hill is neutralized and controlled, I don't think you can completely stop him because, if I'm not mistaken, he still had like 8 receptions for 100 yards. If I'm not mistaken, so like obviously
I was trying
to
look at his
almost any other receiver in a playoff game. That's like their highlight of their career, and that is an average to slow day for Tyreek Hill. Okay, so the fact that he still put up those numbers kind of tells you something about the effect that he has on this offense. But you are right. If he's not getting those deep bomb plays, those 50-yard kind of backbreakers, and you can just kind of neutralize him to more of the intermediate routes, then yes, I think that gives the opponent a better opportunity to at least corral this offense. But then you've got Travis Kelce, who can just kind of beat you in a multitude of ways. And we saw that he was able to score that touchdown. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Travis Kelce, he leaped and he kind of rid Mecole Hardman into the end zone. Like if Mecole Hardman wasn't there, I think Travis Kelce actually falls at the 1-yard line. So Travis Kelce can actually attribute that touchdown to Mecole Hardman. So just getting into it a little bit. But there's not much that I don't agree with you. I do think that the Chiefs have the better defense. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is supposed to play in this game. And I think what that does is, from a running back passing perspective, he's so great with that, right? So while he can run the ball, you also have to now watch out for Patrick Mahomes giving Clyde Edwards-Helaire the ball in a passing aspect. Le'Veon Bell, you're right. I'm not sure what's wrong with him. I don't know. I mean, it's not like he's 35 and just washed up. You would think by now he's got the offense down. He's been in this system for a couple months. I don't know why he's just not as effective. Maybe his running style just doesn't really go with what this Chiefs offense wants to do, but it just doesn't seem to be right. Hopefully with Clyde Edwards-Helaire back, maybe frees up some looks for Le'Veon Bell, and he doesn't have to take the burden of the full load of the running offense. I'm not so sure. Yes, when it comes to the passing attack, I think the Bills have a very good passing attack. I mean, it's simple to say, but obviously not simple to do. You stop Stephon Diggs, and I think that's like cutting the head off of a snake in a sense. Like, yes, Josh Allen has proved that he is a franchise elite quarterback, and we do know that Cole Beasley is very good. John Brown has been effective. But Stephon Diggs, you take him away, what does this offense have? They don't have Zach Moss, like you mentioned. Devin Singletary, who they drafted highly a couple years ago, I believe in the second round, he's good, but he's not an in-between the tackles type dude, right? He is an outside, smaller kind of scat back. So, and then their backup, I guess, who you would bring in for those goal line carries or those kind of between the tackles looks is TJ Yeldon, and he's more of a kind of just veteran journeyman. So none of those guys really scare me from a running back perspective. And so if I'm the Bills, you're kind of looking and saying this game is on Josh Allen's arm. And we know he can chuck it around, but I don't see a balanced attack. I see Josh Allen having to throw for 300 and potentially even 400 yards and really being the hero. He's going to have to play mistake-free ball because I don't think there's going to be much of any running attack for the Bills. So because of that, and not even talking about really, what the Chiefs can do on offense, I think just the lack of a running game for the Bills is really going to hinder them. And I think that automatically gives the Chiefs defense the upper hand to a degree. So I'm going with the Chiefs in this game. I think 34-31. I think it's going to be close, right? Obviously, the Bills, they know how to play in cold weather, so that's not going to be a factor. But I think it'll be close. At the end of the day, I think the Chiefs, too much firepower on offense. And like I mentioned, once again, to bring it home, the lack of a running game for the Bills will come back to bite them.
I want to say one thing about this game and then go back to say one thing about the Tampa game really quickly before we end this podcast. If you look at the stats for the Chiefs in their last two playoff games, so that means the game against the Browns this past Saturday and the Super Bowl, the stats are very similar from Mahomes, from the running game, and from the receiving core. To go back to the Super Bowl, because you guys probably don't remember that one as much, Mahomes had less than 300 yards, right? So not the most impressive. The running backs only ran the ball 17 times in the Super Bowl. And the receiving core, Tyreek Hill had over 100 yards, 9 receptions. But one of those receptions was that big 44-yard catch. So most of his receptions were short. Then you had Watkins going for 98 yards. Last week against Cleveland, the Browns or the Chiefs only ran the ball about 21 times, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact stat. They don't have it up here. Mahomes, obviously, before he got hurt, only had passed the ball for about 260 yards or some odd there. And then Tyreek Hill with one big catch, over 100 yards, and then Travis Kelce helped him out. So, again, the Chiefs do not need every one of their weapons to play well to win these games. They don't even need their quarterback to play like the MVP. So that's why I'm going with the Chiefs. I think it would be a different story if the Bills had two running backs. But, they have a better wide receiver now. They have a good receiving core. I think that receiving core will come into play. I don't think the Chiefs can stop Diggs. And so I think the Bills will be in this game, but they will not win it. I don't think they have a chance to win it. I think it will be Chiefs-Packers in Super Bowl. The one thing I want to say about Tampa Bay and Green Bay, if Tampa Bay can play the same defense and stop Devontae Adams like they did Michael Thomas, because they stopped Michael Thomas for 0 catches, Tampa Bay will win. Just going to throw that out there. The receiving core for Green Bay might be a little better than New Orleans without Michael Thomas, but I'm telling you, they are screwed if they stop Devontae Adams, the Packers themselves. I want to throw that out there because I wouldn't normally say that, but because the Buccaneers literally shut down Michael Thomas last week, there's a chance, right? But I said that with Jalen Ramsey, and Jalen Ramsey crapped the bed, and the Rams defense let him go off. So we'll see. But Jared, this is gonna be 2 fun games. We'll be back next week talking about the results of these games, and maybe getting a little bit into the end of the season storylines and all that stuff and coaching hires, because Obviously, we announced that Urban Meyer on our last podcast was going to get hired. He officially got hired right after our podcast. And then Robert Saleh, the very popular defensive coordinator.
Yeah, good for him, man. Good for him.
He's going to be the New York Jets coach. We also have Brandon Staley, the Rams defensive coordinator, the coordinator for the number 1 defense in the league, is now the Chargers coach. A little bit more controversy with that one because a lot of people thought Brian Dable, the offensive coordinator for the Bills, would get that job. But we'll get into all that next week, along with the recaps of the conference championship and then a little preview for the Super Bowl as well. And then maybe some other sports news if something comes up. But for this podcast, we are done. I am Nick Meenan.
I'm Jared Smith.
And we will see you next week. See you guys.
See ya.